Good afternoon, Colts fans, and welcome to podcast number 2 from the Colts Corral. This is Tom Williams, and today I want to talk to you about Colts free agents. Do we stick with them or do we say goodbye? The Colts have several free agents this year. I'm looking at here a list right now, and we only have 28 players out of the 53-man roster under contract. Several free agents are out here. And I just kind of want to just go through the list one by one, tell you my opinion whether we should keep them, bring them back for another year, or should we say goodbye and let them go and maybe bring in somebody else to replace them. Um, Again, this is championship weekend. Sorry about that. Sorry for the camera fade out there. This is championship weekend, which the Colts were in it. But hopefully, maybe next year we are. Uh, Great games last week. Kansas City, Buffalo. That was awesome. All three games were good, but that game, that was probably the best game that I have ever seen watching football. But anyway, let's get into this. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so let's get started. And the first one I want to talk about is Eric Fisher, left tackle. We brought him in last year to see one. He was coming off an Achilles injury and didn't really get training camp to work with the team to go over a new system. But he came in, started. I think it was after week 3 is when he came back, and part of this, I mean, he played well in run blocking. He did a fantastic job. He had some struggles in pass blocking, but if he's coming in off of an Achilles injury, didn't know the system, didn't get to work with it in the off season. All in all, I thought he did a pretty good job. There was definitely a lot worse that we saw from the left tackle position. Uh, so Eric Fisher, I don't know. I mean, his cap number last year, we spent $8.380 million to have Eric. Is he worth that? I don't know. He's getting up there in the years, probably on the outside looking in as far as his career. But are we going to get a left tackle in the draft? Seeing how we don't have a first round pick this year, a starter, I doubt it. So our choice is: do we bring back Fish, let him play another year, or do we go out in free agency and try to get another left tackle? I, I don't know. I like consistency on the offensive line, and I think if he's willing, I think maybe you bring Fish back in for one more year, and then we wait until the 2023 draft, and when we do have a first round pick, and maybe we can get the long term solution at left tackle then. Second, one of my favorite Colts of all time, T.Y. Hilton. I Something tells me that I think Ty is going to call it quits after this year. I know he was injured. He was injured this year, neck injury. I'd heard. I don't know for sure because I don't talk to Ty on a regular basis. Um, but I'd heard that he had spoke to Andrew when that injury occurred, and he was almost ready to call it quits then. He was going to hang him up and call it quits, but he decided to come back and finish the season. And I thought he looked good. I thought there was, he contributed to the offense. He's not what he used to be. He's not that, he's lost a step or two, but he can still, get that first down for you. He can still take it deep. Um, and he's talk about a locker room guy. There's no better. Again, I think if Ty wants to come back, maybe we let him come back for another year, finish out his career as a Colt. Um, but if he's, I'm one of those people that are leaning that we're going to lose Ty for from retirement. Maybe he comes back and wants to be an assistant receivers coach. Would love to have him in the building. Um, what he gives that building and that locker room, that's you can't just replace that. Third, Mark Glowinski. He's a free agent. One of our sturdy, stable offensive linemen that we've had for a few years. Um, I say we bring him back. Why mess with it? You've got great play from that offensive line. The Colts have considered to have one of the best lines in the National Football League. If you can bring him back at a good price, bring him back. Don't, you need depth at that position at the line. We've got a couple good pieces out there: Chris Reed, Mike Pryor, Danny Penner. Um, so either if Galinsky starts, or he can be in that rotational backup role too. Next, Xavier Rhodes, another one that I think we're going to lose. I think that he's either going to retire, or if he still wants to continue, I think some other team will pick him up. I don't think the Colts are going to bring him back. Uh, he he showed some flashes. Had a couple interceptions. Year before last, he had those two pick sixes. He looked great, but he was injured this year, and availability is key. And is he going to be available for us all year? I don't know. As my opinion, I think that they're going to walk away from Xavier. Next one is an interesting one. Mo Alley Cox, tight end. Mo's a free agent. Uh, I'm kind of on the fence with Mo. I love the size. Like I said in my last podcast, my God, he's 7'8", 400 pounds. He's a matchup nightmare for anybody that tries to cover him. But he, was watching the games, and he had some throws where he should have caught it, but he didn't. I don't know if it's just, he needs more work, more practice, more time with Carson to get that feeling down between the two of them. I mean, he could be a great weapon. There's nobody that's going to cover him. And he can definitely go up and get those 50-50 balls. But I, I think a lot of it depends on Jack Doyle. Excuse me, if Jack Doyle retires, then I think we definitely bring Mo AlieCox back. If Jack comes back and we have him for another year, then maybe the Colts look somewhere else. Um, I like Kyler Granson. I think he's going to be a good addition to the tight ends room. But I think we'll say this. I think Mo Cox. That's going to depend on uh, what Jack Doyle decides to do. Zach Pascal, wide receiver. Chris Ballard seems to absolutely love this guy. And he's, in my opinion, he's shown some flashes in the past. He's willing to block, and that's important. He's willing to do the dirty work, get in the dirty yards, catch those balls over the middle, take the hits, and that's important. But is he going to be one of your? He's not going to be a number one receiver. He's not going to be a number two receiver. He's going to be your third receiver or a backup rotational guy. If you can get him come back on the cheap, bring him back. Al Quadin Muhammad, in my opinion, you definitely bring this guy back. I thought Al Quadin showed great promise this year. He led the team in sacks. He was, I, he might have led the team with quarterback pressures. Um, he seemed like he was always in the backfield, and Again, I think you could re-sign him and not have to spend a lot of money to get him back. So if you can, that's one piece you don't want to let go of. Kind of like the Danico Autry piece last year. You let Al Quadin go, goes to another team, and becomes a superstar. Don't do that. Isaac Rochelle, I don't know. If he is back, he's definitely in a backup role, rotational player on the line. He, I don't know. I just if you need depth, if you need uh, bodies for training camp or practice squad or whatever, that's fine. Are you going to count on him to be uh, a substantial piece in the defensive line? No. Next, George Odom, great special teams guy. Came in the last of the season, played corner and safety. Uh, I bring him back if you can get him on a good price. Bring him back. George had a couple interceptions. He looked to me great cover guy, and he grew up a lot last year. So if you can get him, bring him back. T.J. Carey again. I'm kind of like I think he's the one. I think he's one that's going to retire, or I don't think the Colts are going to re-sign him. He's 31, 32 years old. He's kind of there like with Xavier Rhodes. I just don't think the Colts are going to re-sign him. They'll look for younger players at that position, and they'll probably walk away from T.J. Carey. Next one, Marlon Mack. Uh, you know what's going to happen with Marlon. Colts are not going to re-sign him. He's going to go to some other team, and I hope he has a great career wherever he goes. But we have JT, we have Naeem, and we also have Deion Jackson. Our running back room is set, and I was kind of surprised that nobody wanted to trade for him last year, but they didn't. He's a free agent this year. Colts aren't going to re-sign him. Marlon's going to go to another team. This one I already spoke of earlier, Kamoko Toure. Keep him. He's like Al Quadin Muhammad. Keep him. He had 6 sacks last year. He was created a lot of pressure, and that's what we need on that defensive line. We need to create more pressure. Granted, he didn't have as many sacks last year, but I remember the year prior to his injury or that season prior to blowing out his ankle, and he was a force, and he had several sacks. And if we could get him back to what the caliber of player that he was, that would be a great piece. And I'm sure you could get him on the lower end of the pay scale. You wouldn't have to pay a fortune to keep him. If we can bring him back, bring him back. Julian Davenport, gone. Get rid of him. He was to me he was horrible as far as the offensive line. Get rid of him. Chris Reed, there's probably the surprise of the year. Him and Danny Penner. You got to keep Chris Reed. He is a positional piece on the offensive line. He can play multiple positions on the line, and you need guys like that. It's a long season. People are going to get hurt, and you got to have players that you can fit in on different roles on that offensive line and fill holes when needed. And he played good. He played really well last year. You got to bring Chris Reed back. Next, Taekwon Lewis. Again, no question, bring him back. Taekwon was having a great year, and unfortunately, in that Tennessee game, freak accident, makes an interception, returning the ball and blows his knee out. No contact, no nothing. It happens. But until that point, Tycon was playing great ball. We bring him back again. I don't think it's going to cost you a lot of money to bring him back. And we need guys like that on the defensive line. Andrew Sendejo's the next one. Uh, I like Andrew. I thought he's a heavy hitter as far as from the safety position. Um, he played well last year. Didn't get to see him finish out the year because of that concussion he suffered. But I don't know. It depends on what he's going to do. If he wants to come back, maybe we give him a chance. We always need, backup players in our secondary. Whether he's going to be a starter for you, I don't know. Depends on who we pick up in free agency, who we draft. But he could be a good rotational piece to have for our secondary. And again, I don't think it's going to cost a lot of money to keep him around. Next one is Antoine Woods on the defensive line. Uh, he's not going to be a starter. You're looking at Antoine to be a rotational fill-in piece, a backup. But again, you need those guys. Don't get me wrong. You need those guys, but is there someone else out there better? Probably. So if you can't get him at a good price, walk away. Taylor Stallworth. I thought Taylor played great last year. I saw a lot of Taylor during the Hard Knocks episodes, and he seems like a great locker room guy, a guy that the other players kind of, you know, he's he's got a good attitude, jokes around, and he had production. He's a good fill-in guy on the line, and he could become a starter. I don't know. I say, again, and that's the nice thing. We got a lot of these players that are good players, but they're not going to cost you a lot of money to keep them around. So if you can get Taylor Stallworth back, get him back. Next one, Nick Nelson. I'll be honest with you, folks, never heard of him. If I haven't heard of him, get rid of him. Rob Windsor, same way. Never heard of him, get rid of him. Matt Pryor, that's an interesting one. I thought it was I kind of had my doubts because I really hadn't heard much of him before we made a trade for him in season. But what I saw from him when he played on the offensive line, he did it. He did a good job. He filled in a couple times on the left side, left tackle. He played right tackle, and he did a good job. It wasn't like Davenport and oh, who else? There was someone else. Oh, Sam Tevy. That every time that you know, every time they played, they got destroyed. So if you can get him back, keep him. Matt Adams, man, I'd like to see the Colts keep him. Had that great punt block, scored, set it up that or got punted the blocked the punt and scored a touchdown on that. Um, Again, good special teams person. Keep him if you can sign him. Keep him. Zaire Franklin, I think that's a definite bring back. Zaire contributed all over the place last year. Great linebacker, great special teams guy. You need those guys on your roster. So if you can bring him back, bring him back. Ashton Doolin, that's another one. That's wide receiver. He showed some flashes. He was kind of growing up before our eyes last year. He started out on special teams and made great plays on special teams. He was the gunner. He was fast. He would get down there and make great special teams plays. And he started coming into his own as far as a wide receiver. So again, I don't think there's going to be a high demand for him. So if you can bring him back, bring him back. Sky Moore. Didn't really see a lot of Sky this year. I don't know if he was hurt or what, or just didn't play, or maybe he was on teams and I didn't notice him, but you know, you need bodies. If he only cost you a $500,000 last year, so if you can bring him back, have that extra body, do it. Bring him back. And the last free agent of the Colts is Jake C. Eldercamp. He's a guard. Never really, I don't think he ever played. He might be a practice squad guy, or a camp body or something like that. Um, it didn't. He only got. He must have been a. He must have been a practice squad guy. He only cost you 20 grand last year. So that's I. They'll walk away from. They'll walk away. Anyway, Colts fans, that's it for this podcast. Uh, we'll do another one next week, or maybe sooner than that, and we'll talk about other topics that are facing the Colts. We'll discuss Matt Eberflus leaving, who we're going to get as our next defensive coordinator. Other coaches are leaving. We'll discuss all that and any other topics that come up between now and then. Take care. Thanks for watching Colts Corral. Please subscribe to the channel. Click on the like button. If you have any comments, any things you want to see, questions, send them to me. Send me comments. I'll respond. Again, my email address is coltscorral22 at gmail.com. That's coltscorral22 at gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Take care. See you next time.